Greetings, Spellslingers. It's been a while. The whole Jace Laboratory Maniac meta is finally over. That was terrible. We hit Mythic again, but we only did a little bit of streaming. We did buxfoo's tournament. That was fun. We went 2-2, so it was pretty meh. But yeah, we finally got some patch notes. They added a new planeswalker, Spellslinger, you know. We got Serra, and she's really cool. So let's get into it. Patch notes version 1.03. Greetings, Spellslingers. Welcome to our latest patch. We have some much-awaited balance changes for you, an adjustment to the matchmaking system, and a release of our newest Spellslinger, Serra. Just in time for the holidays, we hope you enjoy these changes and have a happy holiday season. Welcome Serra to the arena. Serra has 21 health. Ascension, at the start of your turn, heal yourself and all friendly creatures by 1. And Divinity, your deck can have multicolored cards, meaning you can run any card as long as it contains white. Then you have her exclusive cards. You have a 2-charge, 4-cost artifact, Shrine of Valor. Summon a Knight. The next charge summons a Serra Angel. Serra Angel down here is a 4/4 fire for 5, and a Knight is a 2/3 for 2. Serra's Judgment costs 3 spell. Give an enemy creature can attack. And Serra's Disciple, 2/2 for 2. Add a random angel to your hand. Serra's Disciple seems really good. Serra's Judgment seems very niche. Like maybe like use it on like someone's big attacker, and you run like a deck of all flyers kind of thing. And then their big attacker can't attack you, and it can't block because it can't block anyway. Shrine of Valor actually seems really strong. Getting a 2/3 and a 4/4 fire for 4 is really good. Balance changes, Liliana. She's getting 1 health. Liliana is a strong choice for new players, but has underperformed a bit at higher leagues. We are giving her 1 more health to help her survive more aggro matchups. Not really sure that's going to do anything, but you never know. Gideon. Gideon is going down to a 3/3, and he's still invulnerable and can't trigger traps. He is no longer a 4/4. Gideon definitely wasn't skipping leg day. Even before the release of Hellvault Unsealed, Gideon was a premier aggro deck in the format. Now with powerful new tools at his disposal, we are bringing him back in line with other aggro decks, and also making Gideon's protection hold more weight. Vivian is getting a nerf. Animal Arrow. Draft a creature from your deck and give it a random upgrade costing now 2 mana. So instead of drafting the upgrade, you draft the creature, and the upgrade is random. So you no longer gain a guaranteed result from your upgrade. Animal Arrow was at the center of some difficult to solve gameplay bugs, like Tarmogoyf not getting buffed in Vivian, which now have been solved. While taking a look at them, we also reevaluated the design of the card. We preferred the play pattern of using her button on turn 1, which people do anyway, and so we moved this to turn 2. Now, to be fair, most of the time, if people had play on the 2nd, they would actually button and Animal Arrow on 1 to potentially get a double buff 2-drop, and you no longer can do that. Ral is getting a systematic change. Mythic Monstrosity, they reduced the cost of the spell, but not the creature. In the last balance change, Magnum Opus's cost was reduced to 3, but the cost of Mythic Monstrosity itself remained 4. We have changed the monstrosity to match the cost of the card that generates it. Honestly, only really matters is if it gets bounced or something. Still fine. Teferi's Acolyte getting nerfed. Instead of 2/5 for 3, the next trap you arm this turn costs 0. The next trap you arm this turn costs 2 less. So some of the most important traps to play around cost 3 mana. By capping the cost reduction at 2, you'll need to leave at least 1 mana open when you arm these traps, which more loudly communicates them to the opponent. You'll see this theme and charge repeated with Hatch a Plan. Ashiok is getting a buff. Extract Fear is going back to 1 mana, which people have pretty much been like, yeah, we want this to happen. We made previous nerfs to Ashiok's kits, which were necessary, but some of them were more impactful than we thought they would be. As such, we're giving Ashiok back some power by reverting this card to 1 mana. Get ready to generate a turn 1 nightmare again. Vraska is getting some nerfs here. Vraska's Grub is going from a 1 mana 2/1 to a... Now, technically, it was a 1 mana 2/2. So So that's actually incorrect. It is going from a 1 mana 2/2 to a 3/2 for 2, with still finale gain a fragile mana gem. The ability to go up on mana with Vraska's Grub was a powerful ability, but as more cards were released, it sped up her deck too much. Vraska extracts a lot of value from her creatures and has few weaknesses, so you want to at least slow down some of her early game explosiveness and make her play fair for a bit longer. It is true. The very big one. Yep, this is the huge one. Laboratory Maniac. He was a 3/3 for 5 and says Miracle, just know the top card of your deck, and if you have no cards in your library, you win the game. The Miracle has been changed to add a card to your deck. It's a random artifact, and now its ability is, if this was played in a previous turn and your deck is empty, you win the game. Meaning you have to have this card, exact copy, out on the turn for a full turn, then empty your deck, and then you win the game. So it means you either have to play a protection spell, or you have to play it on your turn and then win off a remand. That would actually win you the game. So honestly, you could play the same deck and then just win by remanding on your opponent's turn, and that actually should win you the game the same time. Otherwise, you'd have to have a draw on your opponent's turn or a draw on your own turn that would empty your library. So Laboratory was a key part of a powerful blue deck that could win the game consistently turn 6 or 7. While we like the possibility of alternate win conditions for control decks, such as having an empty deck, this is quicker than intended and needed to be addressed on multiple axes. One axis was the Laboratory Maniac itself. The best way to play the Maniac was to hold it in your hand until your deck was empty, and then drop it for the win. Because there are so few ways to deal with cards in hand, this effectively meant your opponent had to win the game before your deck was empty. Now, by requiring the Maniac to be in play for a turn before it can win you the game, your opponent has the chance to remove it from the arena. This makes it a riskier, more interesting card. In addition, we slow down the Maniac by changing the Miracle to add a card to your deck rather than move a card by milling. Overall, alongside some of our other changes, we believe a Maniac-focused deck can still be viable, only at a later turn with a higher risk. The other really big one, Talarian Academy. The first artifact you play each turn costs 1 less, instead of every artifact costing 1 less. And then instead of on turn 5 having the chance of all of your artifacts costing another 1 less, you have a chance to add a random artifact to your deck instead of getting a mana gem, thus preventing a Laboratory Maniac play from earlier again. So that's a big one. Perhaps even more important than the Laboratory Maniac change for overall meta health is this adjustment to Talarian Academy. The ungated ability of the Academy to lower the cost of multiple artifacts a turn became too powerful when played in conjunction with some of the new artifacts released in Hellvault Unsealed, and its power would only continue to grow with the release of more cards. Combined with Jace's Aura, it became a key cog in a powerful draw engine that could run through a player's deck in just a few turns. Literally, with Jace's Aura, if you had a trigger, all your artifacts would just straight up be free. There was the Thought Dissolver, the 1-cost artifact that now would become 0. You could play that in an Izzakron Scepter on turn 1, and that was really, really powerful. As such, we have restricted it to only apply its discount to the first artifact played each turn. The discount no longer scales as the game goes on, which is equally important. Instead, when you miss mana, you get another artifact shuffled into your deck. Who knows what long-lost artifacts you'll find buried in the Academy's vaults. Honestly, kind of cool thematically, very Vorthos that you get a random treasure basically thrown into your deck, but I mean, there's a lot of not good artifacts. I'm pretty sure Teferi would definitely still play it. Getting a turn 1 snare is actually really powerful. I don't think, like, a lot of other decks, they're only, like, running maybe, like, 2 artifacts. They're not really going to play it. There might be an artifact-focused Ashiok deck in the works, though. You never know. Another really, really big one. Gutfire Devil. Instead of a 1/1 for 1 that has Finale, deal 1 damage to your opponent for each Gutfire Devil in your graveyard. Shuffle 3 Gutfire Devils into your deck. It is now a 2/1 for 2. Cannot block. And Finale adds 2 Gutfire Devils to your deck. Deal 1 damage to your opponent for each Gutfire Devil in your graveyard. So, huge nerf, costs twice as much, can't block, and only shuffles 2 instead of 3. I would still 100% play Indomar though. You just care about the damage. Gutfire Devils could create a lot of inevitability and be frustrating to play against, being unable to make an attack or block for fear of creating more Devils or taking lethal damage. It's not the sort of gameplay we want to promote. We are slowing them down by increasing their cost, reducing their frequency by lowering the number of copies they shuffle in, and opening up counterplay by making them unable to block. Because of all these nerfs, we're also increasing their power by 1 so that it can still make a reasonable attacker if your opponent is racing. Overall, we believe that building a deck to take advantage of the devils should be a viable strategy, just one that has less success and more counterplay than it currently does. Literally playing Domri, don't play anything else, maybe Angrath. They might just take the 1 damage and like it. So of course that means Dance of the Devils is going up 1 in mana, so it summons 2/1 devils, meaning it's still representing 3 damage, but it now also triggers at the end of your opponent's turn rather than on attack, which is huge because you can't just use them as throwaway blockers. Because the devils no longer block, we move the timing of this trap to the end of the opponent's turn. We also raise the cost by 1 to better match the increased cost of the devils. Emberspawn Crags is getting a nerf and a buff. The Emberling is now going to cost 1 mana rather than 0. And starting turn 5, you have a chance to add 2 Emberlings to your hand. It's still there. But the mana gem turns fragile instead of giving no mana. So overall, still really good. Still would 100% play in Angrath, 100% play in Domri. Emberspawn Crags provided several aggro decks with a powerful mid-game play. Missing mana is a tempo loss for sure, but when the Emberlings generated cost 0, it was well worth it. We want to make sure there are interesting land choices for different deck archetypes, and believe that this nerf brings the Crags more in line with their other lands. Just having the Emberlings go to 1 cost would have made it difficult to use, but now that you also get fragile mana, you can still basically play the first one for free. And maybe you can find some other scary ways to use that fragile mana. Note that the Emberling changes do not affect Young Pyromancer, which still summons them directly into the arena. Tasty Morsel. Instead of being a 1/1 for 1, Finale give a random creature in your hand +2/2, which is very fast for, like, Vraska. It is becoming a 2/1 for 1 that gives a random creature in your hand +1/+1. This is more in line with the 2-cost zombie, and yeah, +2/2 is a little bit too fast. This morsel was a little too tasty. Now you only get +1/+1 if you chomp down on this mushroom, but it packs a bit more of a wallop up front. Demonic Priest is going from a 3/2 to a 2/2/2/2, which is fair. He was healing mega fast, and people were using with the Harvest. This card of Complicated Provenance. It's generated by the Profane Palace, which itself flips from the Westbow Abbey, which is a bit too efficient at regaining the health loss from Westbow Abbey. Demonic Priest, now 33% less scary. Still pretty scary. Alarm Bell is getting a big nerf here. Instead of drafting a creature, it simply draws a creature. Alarm Bell was quickly a standout card in Hellbound Unsealed. Its flexibility and selection was too much, in addition to the card value it was bringing, so we're removing the choice of which creature it generates. Encore Performance is going from 2 mana to 3 mana. This card was made as a combo enabler, so we want to make sure it is fair in the decks that actually use it. Sure, bringing back a small trinket for 2 mana was fine, but no one actually does that. They were just using it to bring back the energy thing to get full mana back. And they're getting nerf. Spawning Arowana is going from a 0/2, going to a 0/2 from a 0/3, and it has debuted, so I'm going to copy this. Having consistent blockers is fine, but having consistent attackers that can get buffed with the help of some other colors was too aggressive for 1 mana. So we made these fish easier to reel in. I'm guessing they saw my Death Shadow deck that I haven't featured or anything yet, but I definitely posted it. Visibility Cloak is going up 1 mana to 4, because it gives a friendly creature Sneak and Ward. My idea was you gave a creature, you gave a Death Shadow Invisibility Cloak, and then you clone it, so you'll now have 2 creatures with Sneak and Ward, and then swing your opponent for 26. They probably don't want to see that as easily. But the build was Jace, so I mean, it doesn't really affect it much at all. People were running it in Resurrect though, and yeah, that's totally fair, because getting it for 1 mana off Rouse ability is insane. And then using the Heat Shimmer to get a copy is ridiculous. This card has the potential to be highly interactive, so we are adjusting its cost to better reflect that. That's fair. Thought Provoker is that one artifact that was going to cost 0 forever until Art Academy. It is losing a charge from 3 charges down to 2. We wanted this card to provoke, well, thoughts, and not rage. It scaled well early game, cheap cards for when you have less mana, and late game, its interaction with Multiverse Mine, which was, Jace's ability, because now every card you choose to draw the first time is going to cost 0. Due to it being a good draw in any portion of the game, it needed to lose some of its still considerable value. To be fair, you almost never got all 3 charges off anyway. Hatch Plan is now draw 2 cards, the next trap you arm this turn costs 2 less instead of making the trap free. Some of the most important traps to play around cost 3 mana. By capping the cost reduction at 2, you'll need to leave at least 1 mana open when you arm these traps, which more loudly communicates them to your opponent. If you're getting deja vu, that's because you might have read those sentences underneath the entry for Teferi Acolytes above. Sorry. Oswald Fiddlebender is getting a buff. He says, debuted, add a Sharp Shoulder Sturdy Shield to your hand at random, and after you play a spell, give all other friendly creatures +1/+0. The buff is, it used to be until end of turn. That buff is now permanent. Oswald was supposed to be a compelling build around, but its ability was too situational and hard to use. By making the buff permanent, you no longer have to have the perfect turn, with a lot of creatures on the board, and a lot of spells in hand, and can instead build value over multiple turns. Reclamation is getting interesting. Now you draft a card from your graveyard and add a base copy of it to your hand. So technically this is a nerf. It better lines up with other cards that recur non-creatures from the graveyard. The reason why it has to do that is it technically wasn't functioning like that way. It wasn't giving you like a cost reduced card back anyway. It was actually giving you the base copy, it just did not say that. Kothapede and all of his deals, you're now taking 4 damage. And Promise of Power is only giving you 3 mana instead of 4. Honestly, I'm a little sad about that, because one of my favorite things in Vraska was to Kothapede on turn 6 after my opponent had something die, and then Gelatinous Goo, and now you can't do that because you'll be 1 mana short. So that sucks. Kothapede is a powerful demon that loves making deals, but inflation comes for even Princes of Hell, and so now you have to take 1 damage extra when dealing with him. Adjusting Promise of Power to give only 3 mana should also make the choice of what to deal take more interesting. Ball Lightning, it's getting fleeting. It already had fleeting, there's no change. Master Lazov, he's using the new format to disguise himself each turn, which is kind of the same format for Snapcaster and Nicardicu, so there's no functional change. This is a huge one. Matchmaking is being changed. We have adjusted our matchmaking algorithm alongside trophy rewards. Trophies are now capped at 45-15 instead of 50-10. Instead of having the chance of having to get 5 wins for every 1 loss, now it's going to be, at worst, 3 wins for every 1 loss. That is much bigger change. Now you only have to have a 66% chance to guaranteed go to rank up, which is definitely better. Absolutely. This means most people can gain or lose 3 times as many trophies at the extreme end of scale rather than 5. In addition, we split the difference between the original system and the newer system, making it less sensitive to the difference in trophy amounts, thank God, between players. I think this is a better balance between rewarding player, the sheer number of games played, and rewarding wins. We also made some improvements to the back-end matchmaking algorithm that should hopefully result in quicker matches in all leagues, but especially at the lower leagues. Another really good change, Moonlight and Unspent Mana. We have also adjusted how Moonlight functions with Unspent Mana. When Hellvault Unsealed released, players were disappointed that armed traps were telegraphed because reserve mana didn't count as unspent for the purposes of Moonlight. When designing these cards, we felt like that was an acceptable price to pay in order to prevent players from double spending those mana gems. Based on your feedback, we reevaluated that stance and did more testing with Moonlight and traps. We're happy to adjust the system so that this mana is reserved for traps will still trigger Moonlight and still be there to pay for traps. Keep an eye on the balance of the Moonlight cards with this update, but we believe the current power level of the cards is still within an acceptable range, so Moonlight now is actually working how people thought it should. And then there is look for a new special challenge, play angels. Nice. A fixed bug where returning a temporary card to hand from the arena causes it to be discarded when the turn ends. It should not do that. You just get to keep the card forever. Fixed bug where zero cost traps do not get disarmed in the Manatug event. Interesting. Fixed bug where sometimes traps created by other cards cause the game to freeze. Yeah, that totally happened. Fixed bug where the initial download is missing characters in some languages. Okay. Fix a bug where there is no emote text in some languages. Okay. Fix several bugs where in some languages the text in cards is not translated correctly. This would be that the Moonlight guy, the Moonlight Cavalry, 4/4 flying with ward for 6. He didn't actually say that he would draw all the. He didn't actually work at all. He didn't actually work based on the text in German. Fix several bugs where flip cards lose any buffs granted before flipping. That actually totally happened sometimes. It was honestly really annoying that happened actually. Cause I'd buff like a werewolf and it would flip and then lose its abilities, which is stupid. Fix the bug where pain cast damage is affected by mana cost modifiers. I don't even know how that would work. Fix the bug where the matchmaking screen tip incorrectly listed team challenges as refreshing every 5 days instead of every 7. Okay. Fix the bug where Gideon and Guinevere prevented some creatures from being summoned when attacking. That is weird, but okay. Fix the bug where sometimes the tooltip for Gideon to lead the charge ability has the wrong power and health for Gideon. It did do that sometimes. Fix the bug where Gideon's card trade was not legendary. Of course, you know, people definitely wanted that, I guess. Fix the bug where sometimes Soren's Endless Indulgence ability triggers even when no vampires are attacking. No, that's a nerf. That's such nerf. Wow. I might have had it work where I had no vampires attacking and I was still getting the plus and +0. Fix the bug where Clone Explosion's regular and foil art were swapped. That's a nerf to people that wanted the foil. Fix the bug where a copy of Aether Figment sometimes costs 3 mana after drafting. That's big. Fix the bug where Evil Twin does not copy Wild Shape Brontosaurus' abilities. That's pretty weird. Fix the bug where Sanguine Bond sometimes causes the game to freeze when destroying a Wild Shot Brontosaurus. That's a funny one. Fix the bug where Whispers of the Grave sometimes causes the game to freeze when destroying a Wild Shape Brontosaurus. It's probably the gain life and the lose life doing that. Fix the bug where Extract Samples does not create a copy if the creature it targeted was armored. It should. It's cool it does now. Fix the bug where Gold Collar's Gromar sometimes exiles a different creature than expected. That's weird. Fix the bug where Laboratory Maniac's ability causes a loss instead of a win when the last card in the deck has a nightmare attached to it. That is a good change. Fix the bug where sometimes Clumsy Torchbearer causes an error when targeting a relentless creature. Weird. Fix the bug when a creature returned by Moorland Haunt and then returned to hand becomes a base copy with flying. Damn. I thought that was a feature. I really hope that was a feature anyway. Fix the bug where cut down return to hand cannot be played if it was countered. It's a good thing, man. Fix the bug where Delver of Secrets does not flip when drawing a card in the opponent's turn. Honestly, it was pretty annoying that happened. Fix the bug where Delver of Secrets flips when the opponent draws a card during the player's turn. That's weird. Fix the bug where Guess Again sometimes doesn't counter the second card played in a turn. Yeah, that was a big annoying one. Fix the bug where Panharmonicon causes Corpse Trawler to buff creatures instead of debuff them. That's weird. Fix the bug where Recycled Grotesque can sometimes become invisible when sacrificing Merchant of Death. That's weird. Fix the bug where Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, further increases the cost of spells returned to hand with the reban. Yeah, people are pissed about that, so it's good that it's gone. And that is the end of the article. I'll be working on posting some more videos and doing some streaming. Probably gonna do a stream tomorrow on the night. Gonna check out Serra, maybe make some decks for her. And thank you for watching the video, and like, comment, subscribe.